Thank you, Demetra. Ladies and gentlemen, can everybody hear me?
Yes. No.
Okay. First of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me to come to speak about the Parrhasian Heritage Park of the Peloponnesos. Coming from Tucson, Arizona, I bring the National Hellenic Museum greetings from the Hellenic Cultural Foundation of Tucson, which I'm a board member, and we are celebrating this year our 30th anniversary. So we bring you greetings in our 30th year of existence from Tucson, Arizona. So the subject that I'll be talking about has to do with the proposal and the undertaking to create the first cultural heritage park in Greece, the Parrhasian Heritage Park. And so the image on the screen here is a view from the altar of Zeus at Mount Lykaion, looking across at part of the area to be included in the heritage area. I should say that we have a website which you see here on the screen, parrhasianheritagepark.org, and everything that I'm talking about is on the website. The history of the creation of the park, lots of photographs, all kinds of documents that have to do with the creation of the park. It's a repository of data about the park, parrhasianheritagepark.org. So the park is in the Peloponnesos. It is to be the first and the only park in the Peloponnesos. There is no heritage park currently in the Peloponnesos of Greece. There's no national forest in the heritage area of the Peloponnesos. So this is something that is overdue, and it in fact is a central part of the Peloponnesos. The entire area of the Peloponnesos could become a cultural heritage park. There are many, many areas that could be preserved in the same way, but we have decided, for various reasons that I'll explain, to try to preserve this particular part of the Peloponnese. Yes, ma'am.
In the cities that are
highlighted
there, I can't tell.
Yeah, Corinth is upper right, Olympia is upper left, Sparta is to the south, Megalopolis is within the boundaries of the park, and then Mount Lykaion is the Sanctuary of Zeus that's also in the park. So it's Corinth, Olympia, Sparta, Megalopolis, and Mount Lykaion that are indicated here. So the area of the park is under 600 square kilometers, just under 600 square kilometers, but it's a fairly large area, mountainous area that is known for its beautiful landscapes, its rustic villages. It includes two rivers, the Alpheus River and the Nether River. And here you see in more detail the various aspects of the park, and including here the various ancient sanctuaries and ancient cities of the park, including the modern villages. So looking at the color scheme here, the villages are in black, or the cities. So you see Andritsina, for instance, up here. You see Megalopolis down here. You see Anodorio down here. This is a region where three different prefectures come together. The three prefectures are Arcadia, Elis, and Messenia. And the borders are shown here in gray. So this is the border here between Arcadia and Messenia, and this is the border with Elis. So from the beginning, the idea of the park was to have these three prefectures work together to bring about the creation of a park that would include component parts of each of these prefectures, Messenia, Elis, and Arcadia. Within the boundaries of the park, as you see, there are many different sanctuaries and cities. The sanctuaries are shown here in red, and I'll give you a list of those a little bit later. And the cities are shown as blue squares. So you can see right away there are 4 or 5 ancient cities in this area. There are about 10 or 12 ancient sanctuaries within the boundaries of this particular area. This is the Nether River over here, beautiful river, and this is the Alpheus River over here. The Nether flows out to the Ionian coast, as does the Alpheus, and the Alpheus also, of course, flows by Olympia before it reaches the Ionian Sea. Here is a more detailed area showing the border between Elis, Arcadia, and Messenia. And this region is called the Parousia, and this is an ancient word. It's a Homeric word. We know from the second book of the Iliad that the Arcadians, and specifically Prince Agapenor, was given 60 ships by Agamemnon in order to fight the Trojans, in order to go to Troy and fight with the Achaeans. And the reason that they had to be given the ships was that, of course, Arcadia was landlocked. They had no sea, they had no harbors, they had no ships. But they were known as very good fighters. So we hear this name in Homer, and so this is the name of the park because the central part of the park, east central part of the park, is known from antiquity as the Parousia. So what is a heritage park, and what are we talking about? A heritage park is a place where natural, cultural, historic, and recreational resources combine to form a cohesive, distinctive landscape arising from patterns of human activity shaped by geography. These areas tell international and nationally important stories about us and are representative of experience through both the physical features that remain and the traditions that have evolved within them. What is the purpose of the park? And there are many purposes. In this case, to protect the unique vernacular features of the region that have been developed over time to exemplify the Greek agricultural landscape. This is because there are multiple villages that are in existence and doing quite well in this part of Greece. They are raising various kinds of crops and fruits and nuts, and they are worthy of protection. To preserve and provide access to the areas of outstanding natural beauty found in the area, such as the Nether Gorge, and I'll show you pictures of this, a beautiful river gorge. To highlight and protect significant archaeological sites, including the first Greek sanctuary to be recognized on the World Heritage List, the Temple of Apollo Epikurios at Bassae. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we'll talk about that. Also within the park, the famous Sanctuary of Zeus at Mount Lykaion that is under excavation by the University of Arizona together with the Greek Archaeological Service. To allow citizen and government collaboration on planning to share their concerns about localized needs. So this gives those citizens that live within the boundaries of the park the ability to take part in their own future, to be able to plan for their future and to carry it out. To encourage economic growth associated with responsible tourism, to bring an estimated 1 million new visitors to the area each year, to establish guidelines for managing change in the region, to protect the integrity of the existing culture and natural landscape, and to support the traditional culture that exists in the modern day. So these are the purposes that we have set out for the park, and we have the agreement of our Greek colleagues for all of these purposes. And as I'll explain to you, we have been working together with our Greek colleagues for 10 years now on the establishment of this park. Everything that we do is with the collaboration with our Greek colleagues and with their permission and with their support and their enthusiasm. So this is not anything but a Greek enterprise, and we are lending our support. We're lending some of our financial aid to them, and we are also lending our park planning expertise that I will talk about in a few minutes. So the sanctuaries within the limits of the Parrhasian Heritage Park are these: Apollo Epikurios at Bassae, the sanctuaries of Aphrodite and Artemis near Basi on Mount Cotylion, the sanctuaries of Zeus and Sanctuary of Pan at Mount Lykaion, Pan at Berekla, Apollo Parrhasios at Critaea, Sanctuary of Demeter and Despina at Lycosura, a sanctuary at Ano Melpeia that may or may not be the Sanctuary of Ares, Sanctuary of Athena at Phigalia, and the Sanctuary of Athena at Leprion. So there's a concentration of sanctuaries within this 550 square kilometer area, an unusual concentration. And the idea of, one of the ideas of the park in the beginning was the idea to link these ancient sanctuaries and the cities that I'll talk about in a minute by means of a series of hiking trails, so that in the modern day, tourists could actually hike from one sanctuary to another, spend a week or two inside the area of the park, spend nights in bed and breakfasts and in village accommodations, and you know, create a whole new kind of responsible tourism in this area. So here is the Temple of Apollo at Basi as it exists today. It is under a tent. It is one of the most famous temples in the Greek world. For those of you that have seen it without the tent, it is somewhat of a shock to see it with the tent. But nevertheless, restoration work is going on inside the tent. And as you see here, there is a great deal of the temple to be seen once you come inside and look at the temple itself and the exhibits. Another sanctuary within the limits of the park is the Sanctuary of Demeter and Despina at Lycosura, seen here. Another, the Temple of Athena at Phigalia. And of course, our own sanctuary site, the Sanctuary of Zeus at Mount Lykaion. You're looking here at the altar of Zeus, which is the southern peak of the mountain. And you're looking at some of the locations of the various buildings and monuments in and around the sanctuary, fountain houses, Zenon, Hippodrome Stadium. This was a famous athletic sanctuary in antiquity that was probably the model for the Sanctuary of Zeus at Olympia. Our work at Mount Lykaion has shown that the cult of Zeus likely goes back to the 16th century BC at least, and would be in existence 500 years before the Sanctuary of Zeus at Olympia began. Olympia is only 22 miles away. That's a whole other lecture, but in any case, this is a very important sanctuary about which we know a great deal from literary accounts, from Pausanias here, for instance. And in our own excavations, we have found the altar site at Mount Lykaion on the southern peak to be the location of a large Mycenaean shrine, the first Mycenaean mountaintop shrine to be discovered in Greece, and an important site. Bedrock material includes pottery that goes back to the Neolithic period, 5th millennium BC, and includes Final Neolithic, early Helladic, middle Helladic, late Helladic, and continuous all the way through to the Hellenistic period. So we have continuity of cult here, as well as a Mycenaean shrine from the 16th century BC, where there were dedications, burned femurs, now dated by radiocarbon to the 16th century BC. So we have continuous dedications of goat and sheep here, which is unique in the Greek world. So this is a very important site. This is how we received some publicity through the New York Times, this article, An Altar Beyond Olympus for a Deity Predating Zeus, from 2008, in which we at that time had Middle Helladic pottery, which the New York Times wrote about from the early 2nd millennium BC. And the question was, does the pottery predate Zeus? That is, when did Zeus begin? When did the Greeks start speaking Greek? And when is it not BC, but BZ? And the Greek newspapers picked up on this, and this was a headline from one of the Athenian papers. And those of you that can read modern Greek, the headline says, "Arcadia steals Zeus from Crete." And that has to do with the fact that there are two mythological stories for the origin of Zeus, for the birthplace of Zeus. One includes Mount Lykaion in Arcadia, and the other includes a Cretan site, Mount Dicte or Mount Ida. So this was the headline news, that there is a theft involved. There are also ancient cities within the park, these four: Megalopolis, Trapezus, Ira, and Figalia, all famous ancient cities. This is the theater at Megalopolis that some of you have certainly visited, being restored in part by the Arcadian Society in New York, as I understand it. This is the city of Trapezunta, which was recently excavated by our colleagues in the 39th Ephoria in Tripolis. These are the city walls of Ira in Messenia. And then thinking here a little bit about landscape issues and the fact that the park is a beautiful place, irrespective of the ancient sanctuaries and cities. Let me take this opportunity to say that the park proposal and the park project is a joint project. It was initiated by the Mount Lykaion Excavation and Survey Project, but we work hand in hand with our colleagues in the 39th Ephoria, the Lambda Theta Ephoria in Tripolis, and our Ephor is Dr. Anna Karapanayotou, and so she is part of all of our work, including the work of the Parrhasian Heritage Park, so that she and her colleagues in the Ephoria are involved in all of our park-related initiatives. Here is a view of the Nether Gorge, the Nether River Gorge, and here is a view of the falls in the Nether Gorge, which is a spectacular waterfall and a pool, which is a great place to go swimming in the summer if you're anywhere near the Nether River, and I recommend this. This part of the heritage area already has been highlighted by hiking societies and by rafting societies, and there is good documentation in this part of the park. So there are signs here, there are notices here, there are discussions here of the archaeological remains, and so we're not initiating the idea of a park in absolutely the entire area. In some sort of jewel areas of the park, there's already some interest in heritage and in preservation and in documentation and in presenting opportunities to tourists to hike. And this area around Figalia is one of them, where there's a small area where there are signs and there are various kinds of tourist-related information, and there are trails. So we acknowledge what they've done, and we wish to capitalize on this and then expand it, especially in this area of the Nether. So what we have done is the following. Very recently we have initiated the idea of designing and creating trails in the park. And we have done this in each of the last 3 years. We initiated the Trail of Pan in 2011, Trail of Zeus in 2012, and the Trail of Aya Theodora in 2013. And I'll show you photographs of each of these. And so together with these initiations, we've also had the idea to begin a field school which would train U.S. and Greek students in the ways in which you can create a heritage park in Europe. And so we have been doing that in each of these years, 2011, 2012, and 2013. And so you'll see pictures going forward of a number of these student groups that took part in our planning and our design, as well as our actual physical creation of trails, Trail of Pan, Trail of Zeus, and the Trail of Aya Theodora. So, for instance, here is the first of these field schools from 2011 when we were working on the Trail of Pan. And you see that the students are involved in the design of the trail, the actual layout of the trail, They participate in the physical construction of the trail where necessary out in the field. And I show you here my colleague George Davis, who is our geologist on the Mount Lykaion Excavation and Survey Project, and the former provost at the University of Arizona, who is working with the students in this first 2011 season. This was the design of the trail that we were able to carry out. You see here on the left, the trail leads from the village of Anakaries to the village of Nether. It starts in Arcadia, it ends up in Messenia, and then it eventually ends up at the remains of the Temple of Pan here nearby Nether. So this is a trail of about 7 kilometers, and you can see each of the segments and different views from each of the vantage points. This was the inaugural field school. Here was the sign for the trail inauguration. What we did in each case was that we posted notices about the trails and the inauguration of the trails. In neighboring villages, we called for the villagers to come and join us. In this case, on the 30th of July, 2011, between 10 and 12:30. We had 2 meeting points, and those starting in Messenia walked from Nether, those starting in Arcadia walked from Anakaries. We met in the middle. Here is the route of the trail from Anakaries along here to Nether. Here's the scene of the walk, upper photo here, and the scene of various dignitaries giving presentations here in the lower photograph, including the Vice Governor of Arcadia here speaking. We had a list of all the signatures of all those who took part in this initiation, and we've done this for each of the trail inaugurations. Here are the signing ceremonies with mayors and with many others. We had the ephor of the 39th Ephoria together with us. We had the mayor of Megalopolis. We had the vice governor of Arcadia. So we were talking to a lot of politicians about this. We were talking to the local citizens. We were talking to the farmers. We were talking to some of the local societies, and bringing all these people together for, in this case, the Pan Sanctuary inauguration. And so here we were. This is the border between Messenia and Arcadia, where we had our inauguration ceremony with our signs and with talks and so on, and a snack for those who had walked. We also created signs that we posted along the way, and which we will eventually create as a permanent sign. The sign that has to do with the Sanctuary of Pan, the Trail of Pan, Monopati to Pana, and here giving all the instructions about the trail, showing the degree of difficulty, showing the elevation, and our system for showing degree of difficulty has to do with how many goats you see on the map. So this is a 3-goat trail, which means it's not too bad. 4-goat trail is tougher. 5-goat trail means you need to sharpen your fingernails because you're probably going to be on your hands and knees. We've been working on trail design along the way. So here is a sample of the sign on the left, and here's a miniature sign that we actually were able to post showing the Trail of Zeus, another trail nearby. For the Trail of Zeus, we had another ceremony on the 14th of July 2012, and you see a scene of the trail being inaugurated on the right. We also had a signing ceremony, and we had dignitaries present, including the director of the American School of Classical Studies on this occasion. And this trail, when it is fully open, will be a loop trail around Mount Lykaion. So this will be the entire trail here. In 2012, we opened the northeast quadrant of the trail, which was this part here. This past year, in 2013, we were a part of the opening of the Vasta to Aya Theodora trail. This is a trail that's further south in Arcadia, and it runs from the village of Vasta down to the border of Arcadia and Messenia, which is at Aya Theodora, which is a Byzantine church. And so you see the ceremony here at the trail opening in Vasta, and we have the priest here giving his blessing. The man that organized this opening is this man here, Fotis Zois, who has become now the president of the Parrhasian Heritage Park Society, which is a new nonprofit which they have begun in Arcadia, Messenia, and Elis. This is his home village, and so he was instrumental in organizing this trail opening. And he very wisely chose the time immediately after church on Sunday morning, when he would have the most available people for the hike. And so we had 75 people for this hike, and you can see them all waiting here to hike as soon as the priest read the blessing. Now, we've been involved in meetings for a long time. I've told you here about 2011, 2012, 2013, and the opening of the trails. But for many years, going back to 2005, we have been having meetings and giving talks about the park. The idea of the park started as far back as 2003, first articulated in 2004, the beginning of our Mount Lykaion excavation and survey project, when my colleagues in Anokarias first heard about this. They immediately said, "You've got to speak about this publicly." And so by 2005, they had created a program in Athens that had to do with Mount Lykaion and the Lykaion Society, and they put me on the program to talk about the Parrhasian Heritage Park, because we had already given it a name. And so as far back as 2005, we have been speaking about this. I should give a number of other people notoriety here. Obviously, I'm not doing this alone. The Mount Lykaion Excavation and Survey Project is a collaborative project between the Greek Archaeological Service, Dr. Anna Karapanayotou, who is FOR. My colleague at the University of Arizona is Dr. Mary Voyatsis, who has been involved with me in this project since the beginning. And so there are three of us who are the three directors. The park proposal came out of this Mount Lykaion Excavation and Survey Project, again, beginning as far back as 2003, when Mary Voyatsis and I were talking to our then FOR, Anastasia Panayotopoulou, the FOR of the fifth Ephoria, about the idea of preserving this heritage around the site. She liked the idea of that because typically archaeologists go into a site and they excavate a site and then they go back home. What we were saying at the beginning was we want to help preserve this area. It's so beautiful and there's so many important sanctuaries and cities. We want to help you preserve, unify, and maintain these areas forever. So together with Anastasia Panayotopoulou, Anna Karapanayotou, Mary Voyatsis, and I, we went forward. And so along the way, we have chosen excellent people to work with us, and I will be talking about those people now. The rest of the story has to do with what everybody has been doing, specifically giving them their due. So here I am in Megalopolis before a talk there. I'm greeting the governor of the Peloponnesos, Dr. Petros Tatoulis, and standing between us is the mayor of Megalopolis for this meeting. We held a number of these meetings in July of several years, beginning in 2010, and these were the ways in which we gained support from all parts of society, from the governor of the Peloponnesos. We even had a letter written by the Prime Minister of Greece supporting the project, to the local ephorias, the archaeological ephorias, to the local communities, the local societies, to the farmers, to the villagers. Everybody came to these meetings. We had broad support. We tried to initiate a discussion that would give us an idea about what the negative aspects of the park were. We wanted to hear what people did not like about it. We never heard any. We have never heard a negative comment about it. So the people kept saying, just keep going, just keep doing it. Whatever you're doing, keep going. So that's what we did. So here's one of the conferences with the governor of the Peloponnese speaking, with Anna Karapanayiotou sitting next to him, and Dr. Voyatsis and I on the right. Here is a very important gentleman. This is Costas Koscos, Dr. Costas Koscos. He is now retired. He's professor at the Polytechnion in Athens. He is professor emeritus of environmental sciences and forestry. He was trained at the University of Wisconsin. He's an adjunct professor at Syracuse University. He is the man who has been responsible for creating the national forests in Greece. So if any of you have hiked the Samaria Gorge Trail, this was created by this man, Costas Koscos. It's an amazing trail in western Crete, which all of you need to go and hike. It just happens, how did we end up meeting Costas Koscos? It just happens that his cousin lives in Tucson. And so one time when Mary Voyatsis, George Davis, and I gave a talk, it was written up in the newspaper. Costas Koscos' cousin read the newspaper clipping, sent it to his cousin, and said, "This looks like an interesting project." Costas called me up when I was at Penn in Philadelphia and said, "I am willing to help you any way I can." And so this was probably in 2003. We were just starting to think about the Parrhasian Park. So I invited him to come and to visit us. He invited us to come and visit him in Athens, and then we invited him to come and visit. I explained the site. We stood up on the altar and looked out at the altar, and at that time I was thinking that he could help us with taking core samples to understand better whether or not the altar was wooded in antiquity, if it was a forest there, and this was his field. But looking out, I said, you know, we also have the idea of creating a heritage park here. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you kidding?" And I said, "No." And he said, "That's me. That's what I do." And I said, "Well, I didn't know that." So anyway, so he has been helping us on the Greek side all these years. He's the only man that knows how to create a park in Greece, this man. So he was the key to the project. Once I realized what his background was and what he was doing by means of creating the National Heritage Forests, he knew what the legislative hurdles were in order to make this, to have this created.
Zeus was with you.
Zeus was with both of us, I think, that day. Absolutely. So this gentleman, the park was created because of this gentleman, Costas Koscos, not because of me. This is another park planner who is working with us. This is Mark Davison. Mark Davison is currently the park planner for the Metro Portland, Oregon area. Before that, he was the park planner for the state of Oregon. Before that, he worked with the National Park Service at Mount Rainier. Before that, he worked for the National Park Service north of Boston. Before that, he was at Penn and he was one of my students. He was a landscape architecture student and a Thuron scholar at Penn. Before that, he worked at English Heritage. So he's been creating parks and working in parks for about 20 years. So he has been instrumental in helping us with the planning documents we need in order to create a park. The park is being created because of Mark Davison, not because of me. He is together with Costas Koscos, these two are park professionals, and we've been extremely lucky to fall into their hands. So what do these Parrhasian Heritage Park Field Schools look like? These are some scenes from last summer. The Park Field School is not just landscape design, landscape characterization, physically creating trails and talking to community members, but it's also visiting the landscape and visiting buildings and monuments in the landscape. So here on the left you see the students, and these include 2 Greek students and 4 U.S. students under the guidance of Dr. Nota Panzu, who is standing here on the right, who is our field school liaison. This is another jewel we have found in Greece, who just happens to be, her home happens to be a few kilometers away from Anakaries. Her home is in Lykaion, which is the next village down the road. She has a PhD in Cultural Heritage Management from Southampton, a master's degree from Cambridge. She wrote to us and said, "Can I help?" So you can see what we're doing here is we're embracing all the local Greek expertise in these areas, people who are willing to put in some time and effort to help us, and that's what they're doing. So here are the 4 U.S. students here upper right from the field school, from Temple University, from Penn, and 2 from the University of Arizona, Pat Pladen, Angelina, Nilu, and Alex Ford. Here you see the one of the lectures that was given during the field school. This is the man who is in charge of the Lykaion Zeus Society, the local society of Anakaries, telling the students about the local situation and why the park would be important to the local village, why the park is going to be important for the region. Here are the students all together. Here again is Fotis Zois, who is the man who has masterminded the vasta Aya Theodora trail, which he collaborated with Mark Davison and me on in order to prepare for this opening this year. You see the students. You also see one of our Parrhasian Heritage Park donors here, Dorothy Dinsmore, who came to visit last summer and who has been supporting our efforts in the Parrhasian Heritage Park for almost, 8 years now. This is the Nevmatiko Kentro of the village. This is the former schoolhouse. This is the spiritual center, literally the spiritual center of the village. So we've had very recently meetings of this new society called the Parrhasian Heritage Park Society, which is a nonprofit Greek association which will be able to apply to the European community for funding once there is a legislative act of parliament that creates the Parrhasian Heritage Park in Greece. Once it's a legal entity, then this nonprofit will be able to go to work to apply for European community funds, which there are in abundance at this moment for European cultural heritage parks. So there have been a whole series of meetings, Athens, June, Andritsina, Elis, October, Dorian, Messenia, December, Megalopolis in Arcadia in January. Again, what we have stressed to those organizing in Greece has been the importance of working together, to have these 3 prefectures work together on this initiative. This is very, as you will probably know, un-Greek-like to do this. Because there are differences between these prefectures, and they have their own identity, and they are often competitive with one another. For instance, the Temple of Apollo at Bassae is contested between all 3 of these prefectures, Arcadia, Elis, and Messenia, and it is transferred back and forth from time to time. It's right at the heart of the park, but this is, when I first talked to Costas Koscos, that I've now told you about this idea, and he said, well, there's a big problem about your proposal. He said, it's a wonderful proposal. I'll help you any way I can. It'll never happen. And I said, why? He said, well, you're talking about Elis, Messenia, and Arcadia. These are 3 different political units. They have 3 different leadership. They have their own identities. They will never do this. I said, but this is what will make it strong. He said, I will work with you, and he did. And in fact, he is amazed that we have come to this situation. So here is a view of the meeting in Athens that I attended in June. This was held in the old Parliament building in Athens, a beautiful building that is mid-19th century building, and it's right on Kolokotroni Street in Athens. Spectacular event in June. Following the Andritsina meeting, I found this on the website from the Patras News, and
Do you read Greek?
I do. But why don't you read it to us?
What if you do?
I do. So it says the Parrhasian Politistico Park. We're calling it Kleronomias because that's more of a heritage park, but the political park. So convico, that so that's what is that verb? Is that how would you translate that? So a geographical sign of a meeting between Elis, Arcadia, and Messenia, I think is what it's saying. That these three prefectures have come together in this meeting, have combined. And so this in itself is making news, the whole idea that they're talking to each other and they're actually getting together. At each of these meetings, here's the meeting in Messenia, a smaller sort of a meeting of the minds here in Messenia. Here is Fotis Zois, and here is Costas Koscos and the other leaders. Dr. Voyatsis and I wrote up a message to be read at each of these meetings, and one of the things we said was that by means of working together, Arcadia, Elis, and Messenia, you will gain strength, and that strength will be recognized by the European community, especially now when there is so much difficulty in Greece and so many economic hardships. The whole idea of different parts of Greece wanting to work together will be something that will catch their attention sooner or later. And so this was read. Our representative there was Dr. Nota Panzu, and here you see her reading our statement. Again, she has become our liaison in Greece, a beautiful young woman with a PhD, with a husband and a baby, a darling baby, who is really going to bat for us now with training in cultural heritage, and someone who speaks Greek and English equally well. She's really been a fabulous find for us. What happened at this last meeting in Megalopolis was that the Parrhasian Heritage Park Society, that is the Greek nonprofit, and the whole idea of the Parrhasian Heritage Park of the Peloponnese has now been recognized by UNESCO. So this is a big step forward. And this is a statement read that she did, the president of the Greek office of UNESCO, whose name is Ekaterina Tsitsicosta, wrote the statement, and this last sentence here that's highlighted says that the Greek committee of UNESCO supports the creation of this body and the going forward of this endeavor, and for the plans for the first Parrhasian cultural heritage park in Greece. So this is a big step forward to get the support of the Greek office of UNESCO. The whole idea of this would be to capitalize on the fact, of course, that we have the Temple of Apollo at Bassae in the center of the park that's already UNESCO a monument. And what UNESCO is now typically doing is it's recognizing landscapes around its monuments and characterizing those as UNESCO landscapes. So that's what we're hoping will happen here, that they eventually, once it's a legal entity, will recognize the park as a UNESCO landscape. It is Costas Koscos that is leading the way and helping to bring about the Act of Parliament, legislative act that will then create the park legally in Greece, and at that time then the nonprofit can use that to apply for funding to the European community. So I would say that just in the last year we have made huge strides ahead in this most difficult time of economic crisis in Greece. My colleague Mark Davison has told me, because he's been involved in creating parks around the world, not just in Portland, Oregon, he says that typically the best time to create a cultural heritage park is in a time of economic crisis. For some reason, this is typically the time that the parks are created. And so this fit in. We didn't know that this crisis was going to happen, of course, but this fit into the timetable of the park. And so all indications are now that we have created a good foundation for the creation of the park. The Greek communities are helping and taking the initiative now to do what they can do to literally create the park from the grassroots in these three prefectures, from the ministerial level, from the gubernatorial level at the governors of these different provinces. We already have the support of the Prime Minister of Greece. So it looks like, you know, we are on the right track. So this is the story I wanted to tell you. I want to especially pay tribute here to the donors of this park proposal that include the Karabots Foundation, and specifically Nicholas and Athena Karabots. These are, of course, donors to this museum. The Karabots Foundation has given a substantial amount of money to this museum, to its creation. Also, I'd like to mention Annette Merrill Smith, James H. Ottaway Jr., and Dorothy Dinsmore, all of whom who have been giving each of these last 8 years since we have created the need for the Parrhasian Heritage Park of the Peloponnese, to thank them. I would encourage all of you to come and visit us in Greece, to visit the park, to come and plan to hike the trails. I would encourage you to tell your friends and neighbors about the park. Again, to look at our website for more information, parrhasianheritagepark.org. And if any of you know of any people interested in helping us in this cause, we are eager to talk to people that might be willing to support a student to help us during the field season, the park season, or specifically to help us with other endeavors that relate to the park. Thank you very much.